What would you do if the dream you worked for your entire life was taken away? Not because of money, not because of effort, but because of who you are? This is the story of a woman who refused to let rejection define her and turned an insult into the greatest victory anyone could imagine. Vanessa Coleman had always believed that hard work was the key to freedom. She wasn't born into wealth. Her childhood home was a small, two-bedroom house in Birmingham, Alabama, where her mother worked double shifts as a nurse and her father repaired cars in the neighborhood. From a young age, Vanessa learned two things. Education was power, and dignity was priceless. By the time she turned 30, Vanessa was a success story in her own right. She had graduated from Princeton, earned her MBA, and now worked as a senior financial analyst in Dallas, Texas. Her salary was strong, her savings account impressive, and her credit score flawless. For Vanessa, it was finally time to reward herself with the dream she had always imagined. Her own home. And not just any home. She wanted a place where her future children could ride their bikes safely, where her mother could retire peacefully, and where she could host her friends for Sunday dinners. That dream led her to Plano, Texas, one of the fastest-growing suburbs in the state. Quiet streets, manicured lawns, gated communities. The kind of place where neighbors smiled as they watered their gardens and kids played. Basketball in the driveways. When she first drove into the neighborhood of Maplewood Estates, Vanessa knew this was it. It was a two-story brick home with wide windows, a beautiful porch, and enough space for the family Vanessa hoped to build. The real estate agent told her, "This is one of the most sought-after properties in the area. Safe, quiet, excellent schools. It won't stay on the market long." Vanessa smiled. She was ready. She had the down payment. She had the bank approval. Everything was falling into place. Until the HOA stepped in. A week later, Vanessa received a letter. The words were polite, almost cold. "We regret to inform you that your application for residence in Maplewood Estates has been declined." She was shocked. Declined? She called her agent. "But I'm pre-approved. My credit is excellent." "What do they mean declined?" Her agent hesitated. He lowered his voice. "Vanessa, the Homeowners Association has certain reservations. They control who moves into the neighborhood. They didn't give a reason." But Vanessa knew. Deep down, she knew. For weeks, she tried to fight it. She contacted the HOA directly, asked for clarification, even hired an attorney. Every time, the answer was the same. Application denied. Neighbors who had seen her touring the house began whispering. Maybe she doesn't fit in here. Maybe it's not the right community for her. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about credit. It was about race. One evening, Vanessa sat in her car outside the neighborhood, staring at the house that should have been hers. Her chest burned with anger, but her heart ached even more. All her life, she believed that success would break every barrier. That if she worked harder, studied longer, and saved more, no door would stay closed. But here she was, watching her dreams slip away, not because she wasn't qualified, but because she was a black woman. She could have walked away. She could have bought a home elsewhere. But Vanessa wasn't built to walk away. That night, sitting in her car with tears streaming down her face, she whispered to herself, "If they don't want me to buy a home here, I'll make sure I buy more than just a home." It was the beginning of a plan no one could have imagined. Vanessa didn't sleep that night. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling of her apartment, her mind racing with thoughts. She had worked too hard to be told she wasn't good enough for a neighborhood she could easily afford. The anger inside her slowly transformed into something else. Determination. If they didn't want her in Maplewood Estates, then she would make sure that one day they would have no choice but to see her name everywhere. The next morning, she sat down with a notebook. On the first page, she wrote 4 words in bold letters: "Buy the neighborhood." It sounded impossible, even to her. But Vanessa had something the HOA had underestimated: knowledge. She understood finance. She understood markets. And most importantly, she understood people. She started small. She began researching every property in and around Maplewood Estates. She looked at foreclosures, old houses that weren't selling, and land that was left unused. At the same time, she quietly reached out to investors she knew from her firm. Some said no, some laughed, but a few listened. Because Vanessa didn't just pitch an idea, she pitched a vision. She told them, I'm not just buying houses. I'm building a future. And I promise you, this neighborhood will rise in value like never before. Slowly, money began to come in. Not millions all at once, but enough to make her first purchase. A small, neglected house on the edge of Maplewood Estates. The HOA ignored it. After all, it wasn't inside their perfect little circle. But Vanessa didn't care. She fixed it, repainted it, and within months, the value had doubled. That was just the beginning. Over the next 2 years, Vanessa bought more and more properties. Some directly, some through shell companies, some through partners who believed in her. She built connections with banks, real estate developers, and even city officials. Every time she closed a deal, she remembered the rejection letter from Maplewood Estates. The whispers in the community grew louder. Homeowners started noticing that new families were moving in. Families who looked different. Families who once might have been rejected too. And behind it all was Vanessa. One afternoon, as she drove past Maplewood Estates, she saw the HOA president, a stern-faced man named Richard Collins, standing on his lawn. He didn't recognize her, but she smiled as she passed by because she knew something he didn't. The land right behind his perfect neighborhood now belonged to her. It wasn't easy. There were sleepless nights, risky loans, and moments when everything almost collapsed. Some investors pulled out. Some neighbors resisted. Vanessa faced lawsuits, city zoning battles, and endless attempts to stop her progress. But every time someone tried to block her, she pushed harder. Because she wasn't just fighting for a house anymore. She was fighting for respect. 3 years after that night in her car, Vanessa stood on the balcony of a brand new development, Coleman Heights. It was a modern, thriving community built right next to Maplewood Estates. Dozens of families had already moved in, and more were coming every week. The place was alive, children playing in the parks, couples walking their dogs, small businesses opening on the corners. Word spread quickly. Coleman Heights wasn't just another neighborhood. It was a statement. A symbol that no rejection, no prejudice, no HOA could stop someone determined to rise. The climax came when Vanessa's company made an offer that shook Maplewood Estates to its core. Several longtime residents were looking to sell, and through her network, Vanessa bought their properties. Not one, not two, but an entire block inside the very neighborhood that had once denied her. The day she signed those contracts, she walked past the old Maplewood HOA office holding her head high. Richard Collins was there, his face pale as he realized what had happened. The same woman they had rejected was now their largest property owner. Vanessa didn't gloat. She didn't need to. She simply looked him in the eye and said, "You told me I didn't belong here. Now I own it." From that day forward, the story of Vanessa Coleman spread far beyond Plano, Texas. It became more than a real estate success. It became an inspiration. Students studied it. Business leaders quoted it, and families who once felt powerless found courage in her name. Vanessa never forgot the pain of that rejection, but she also knew that without it, she might never have found her true purpose. What started as a dream of one home had turned into a legacy that would outlast her lifetime. And so, the woman who was denied a house in Maplewood Estates became the woman who bought the whole neighborhood instead. Sometimes rejection isn't the end. Sometimes it's the very beginning of something greater than you ever imagined.